One sec. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on ACPS TV and streamed on ACPS YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you entered the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. If we would all pause for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to item 2.03, approval of the minutes. Do I have
Motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
Second. Thank you. Do I have consensus? Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to item 2.04, establish agenda order.
Motion to approve agenda as written.
Second. Do I have consensus? Thank you. Moving on to item 2.05, recognitions. Do we have recognitions today? Thank you. Now, moving on to item 2, sorry. Yeah, I'm moving on. Moving on to item 2.06, Educator of the Month. Ms. Frank.
Thank you. Sorry. The May 2022 Educator of the Month is a leader in my community. Not only is she an exemplary early childhood interventionalist, an outstanding resource to the children and families in Pasadena with whom she works daily. Outside of the work, she organizes sports and social opportunities as a leader in the Panthers Athletic Club. Ms. Heather Szymanski routinely goes above and beyond to provide and coach families in experiences and activities that will benefit and encourage their child's development in the context of their daily routines. She is remarkably engaging, compassionate, supportive, and innovative as she provides services for children aged birth to 3 and their caregivers. She has boundless energy, which allows her to quickly connect with and build rapport with parents, babies, and toddlers. Heather embraces challenges of the often emotionally charged work with babies and toddlers who have disability with good cheer, empathy, and professionalism. She is a model of family-centered early intervention to her professional peers and is always available to support peers with a genuine smile and positive reflection on the day's events. The virtual social communications group that Heather created during the pandemic focused on toddlers sitting and attending during a short circle time routine, imitation skills, engaging in songs and finger plays, spontaneous use of language, vocabulary development, communicating with adults and peers, following directions, fine gross motor skills, and articulation development. She actively communicated information to the families that she serves and her colleagues. Everyone respects and trusts Heather. She always knows what to say to her colleagues and the parents that she works with. She is an excellent advocate for her families and fellow staff members. She goes above and beyond providing the families she serves with the resources that they need and creates a positive learning environment. The Pasadena families with whom she works value the work of Heather's skills, professionalism, and support, as they navigate the challenges of accepting and learning skills and strategies to help their little ones. For all of these reasons and more, the Board of Education is so very proud to award you today as the May 2022 Educator of the Month. Congratulations. And in just a moment, please come down and meet me.
Ms. Szymanski, if you'll come forward. Congratulations.
So how did, you have a lot of people here with you today. What did you think you were coming for?
To hear about education, or as an educator, what our responsibilities are when we go into court cases and so forth.
Well, this should be very exciting compared to what you thought maybe in the days to come.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
We'll
We'll
take pictures.
Okay. Thank you guys all for coming out. Thank you for
Just to let everyone know, as we do these recognitions, we'll take time afterwards to take a few pictures out front. So, item 2.07, Employee of the Month. Ms. Corrido.
Although the Employee of the Month is assigned to specific trade programs at Cat South, she has always displayed a willingness to help and support the school in any way she can. Miss Amanda Vandergriff, Teaching Assistant at the Center of Applied Technology South. Ms. Vandergriff is always projecting positivity in the classroom and around the school. She is a great example for students when it comes to the employability skills emphasized at Cat South: work ethic, communication, dependability, and teamwork. Additionally, Ms. Vandergriff is the creator of our school's very own Student Success Plan. It was initially a way for our cosmetology students to stay organized and track their hours, but very quickly spread to school-wide and became an excellent tool for teachers and students in all programs. Ms. Vandergriff is a trained aesthetician. She brings that expertise to the program she supports. No detail is too small. She's a problem solver with more initiative than the average person, indeed. She regularly shares trainings, articles, and strategies with whomever would benefit. Her willingness to assist others goes well beyond the teachers she is assigned to support. Amanda gives 110% to everything she does at Cat South. Her efforts always come with the utmost professionalism and commitment to excellence. She builds trust and rapport with the students and staff. She models what it means to be a continuous learner by earning industry certifications, fostering a sense of funds, and brings a passion to each program she supports. Amanda Vandergriff, thank you for all that you do to support the students and teachers at Cat South. The Board of Education is honored to award you as the May 2020 Employee of the Month. Congratulations.
Amanda,
Thank
so
you.
tell us, how were you convinced to be here today?
Paperwork was needed for an audit.
That's a pretty compelling reason, right?
Better get down there.
And who is with you today?
I have my principal, my mother, the teacher I work with, Lacey, my stepfather, and my husband.
Great, and I'll be able to join us after this afternoon.
Thank you. And now for item 2.08, Volunteer of the Month. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Winston Churchill once said, quote, "You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give," end quote. One of the reasons our ACPS volunteers are able to positively impact the lives of students we serve is because they understand how fundamentally true this is. Our volunteers are priceless. The work they do demonstrates a level of commitment that is so crucial to developing and sustaining the school communities we hold most dear. This is certainly true of the volunteer we're here to celebrate today. Mr. Dennis McKinley, the Board of Education, is proud to honor you as May 2022 Volunteer of the Month. I am smiling under this mask. As the parent of 3 alumni and 1 current sophomore, Mr. Dennis McKinley has been an active member of the Broadneck High School community for many years. In recent years, however, Mr. McKinley has substantially stepped up his efforts and has been serving the Bruin family as the unofficial Broadneck High School athletics photographer. According to Principal Rachel Kennelly, quote, "Mr. McKinley is as recognizable on the Bruins sidelines as our mascot. He donates his time night after night to capture our student athletes in action. Mr. McKinley visits every sport, ensuring all our athletes are well represented. He is present at regular season games, senior nights, playoffs, and championships. His love of Broadneck athletics is evidenced in the pictures he takes and his excitement on the sidelines and his dedication to our school community. Mr. McKinley shares his photos with students, parents, and the school so that everyone has treasured memories of their time as a Bruin. Mr. McKinley is a valuable asset to our school community whose contributions will always be part of Broadneck history." Head boys varsity basketball coach John Williams shared, quote, "Mr. McKinley has set the precedent with regard to volunteer work at Broadneck High. He has always been extremely giving with his time and efforts, but what makes him exceptional is the amount of care he puts into his work. He continues to create memories for all our student athletes, regardless of the weather, the type of contest, or the travel involved. As a result, he is one of the many reasons why Broadneck High School continues to be such a special place." Athletic Director Kevin Necessary echoed this sentiment, quote, "Mr. McKinley volunteers countless hours traveling all over the county to capture as many high school memories as he possibly can for our student athletes. He attends as many games as possible, all sports senior nights, as well as many athletic banquets and events to take thousands of pictures. We are so very fortunate to have someone like Dennis McKinley supporting our entire Bruin athletic community. It's clear that Mr. McKinley understands that through his actions, he's not making his living, he's making his life. His dedication and commitment to Broadneck High School is inspiring and seems obvious that he feels as enriched by the members of this community as they do by him. Mr. McKinley, would you please come forward? It's with great appreciation I would like to present the Volunteer of the Month belt and certificate to you. Why did they tell you to get you down here today?
Another coach at the school was being honored, Mr. Hunter Flynn, and they wanted me to take pictures of the event. Then I saw this guy, and I thought, that's not why I'm here.
Yeah. And who do you have with you today?
So my wife, 2 of my 4 sons, and my mom are here, as well as our principal and athletic director.
Fantastic. All right, let's get a pretty photo. All right, this is for you, and we'll take some more pictures.
Yes. Did you want to quickly, we're going to do a break now, but did you want to quickly say something?
Thank you, President Tobin. I apologize. I had to step away. I didn't realize we had flipped through our recognition section. But I just wanted to give a moment of personal privilege and shout out for my District 7 folks. South River High School was recognized in U.S. World and World Report and News as being in the top 50 in the state and top 1,000 in the nation. And I just wanted to do a little shout out because them and as well as Chesapeake Science Point were recognized, and just wanted to say a heartfelt congratulations to the team. And I look forward to more years of success under our principal, and just say they have an outstanding team, and goes a long way to show that all this hard work and stuff does pay off. But congratulations, Seahawks, rocking it yet another year.
Thank you. Yes, please. So we will take a brief break to go out front to get some pictures of our honorees. Congratulations, everyone. You've made our day, and you make many students' days every day. So thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Okay, so we are going to move to section 3, a presentation on the county executive's recommended FY 2023 operating and capital budgets. Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We're delighted to bring you some updates regarding regarding your budget recommendation to the county executive, who, as you well know, has released his budget. Our team has had a chance to go through the budget as a result of last week's release, and we have members of our team that are going to present some information and answer questions as needed. Welcome, team. Alex?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please allow us to briefly introduce ourselves. I'm Alex Shakhnovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Matt Stansky, Director of Financial Operations.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
And so, as is customary, Madam President, we intend to briefly go through the operating budget first, and then maybe we could pause for any questions at that time, and then when you're comfortable, we can then transition over to the capital budget and do the same. So before you on the screen, and I believe you have copies in front of you, is an analysis of the recommended budget that was presented by the county executive, Mr. Pittman, on the 29th of April, 2022. It's important to note that the way that the timing works here in the county is, as you recall, the superintendent put forward his recommendations back in December, and the board finalized their request in February. We are now just concluded the county executive stage where he weighs not just this Board of Education's budget request, but the requests of all of the other component units in the county and all the other departmental entities within the county. So the budget writ large has now been put forward to the county council. The county council will hold 2 public budget hearings, as well as numerous workshops with different departments. Our turn happens to be tomorrow afternoon on the 5th of May. We're last up on deck tomorrow. I think information is going out about that today. The county council will then be working to take into consideration all of the various county executives' recommendations, and at present they are scheduled to conclude their work on the 14th of June. That is the present schedule. Remember, the county charter requires them to conclude by the 15th of June. So they've got a buffer day built into their calendar, and then right on the heels of that, we'll bring the information, the final version of the information back. So turning our attention then to the operating budget specifically, we'll begin on the top portion of the first page regarding the revenue. So in all of the various categories of revenue on both restricted and unrestricted side, the numbers that are put forward and recommended by the county executive are a match to the request that was adopted by this board for remittance to the county government, save one, the county unrestricted line, and we'll go through these in a little bit of detail. But the federal government, as you recall, is a very small contributor to our unrestricted funding level, and the county executive's budget recommendation does align with that, as so with the state. Remember that the budget documents look different this year because with the advent of the blueprint legislation, or the Kerwin plan moving forward, we've now learned new words called assigned. So there are assigned funds, and then there's the old still restricted funds. So all of the various state elements, as were put forward in the final adopted budget of the General Assembly, were recommended for adoption by the county government. So there's a match with all that. Then focusing on the largest variable each year really is our county funding. Remember, the county is our largest funding source each and every year here in Anne Arundel County, typically accounting for 60+% of our revenue. In total, from Anne Arundel County government, the recommendation is for $50 million of incremental year-over-year funding. That $50 million amount is then disaggregated to just over $40 million of unrestricted monies, with the remaining $9+ million being categorized in those blueprint legislation required assigned categories. So the only differential, and that's a differential that's highlighted there in a yellow font feature, is this Board of Education had originally requested for $79.5 million of unrestricted general operating money, and $40.4 million of it was recommended. So all in all, when you get to the bottom line there, because everything else, again, is an exact match to what this board requested back in the end of February, we had asked for $197.5 million combined from all sources in new revenue, or revenue recognition and appropriation authority. $158.5 million of that is what the recommendation is at this stage of the budget process. Again, as we head into the county council phase. Looking then through the remainder of the categories, we'll hit some highlights and we'll bucket them for a sense of expediency. But if you scroll up the page just a little bit, there's a category called commitments and compensation. And compensation is essentially the board's request was fully funded in all of the various line items, including the other half, or the balance of the mid-year that was granted in the current fiscal year, the compensation placeholder or step movement for those eligible as applicable per unit, a 4% COLA for all units, the remaining compensation placeholder for the remaining backstep or makeup step for units 2 through 6, remembering that Unit 1 was essentially made whole as a part of this current year's budget process. And then finally, the requisite funding for the National Board certified salary enhancements contained within the blueprint legislation. Naturally, everything in a category of compensation is all subject to the final term and conditions of the negotiated agreement. So these are the placeholders or the recommendations at this stage. Going down then into the commitments category, again, were fully funded, so there's an exact match between the request that was put forward by the Board of Education and the county executive's recommendation. Moving then to the next page of the exhibit, you'll see the first banding in a yellow highlight, and yellow is sort of the color coding for there's a differential, right? There's a difference between what was requested and then what is currently recommended. So in terms of the funding cliff, you'll see that the majority of the items are not currently recommended for funding. One is recommended for partial funding. However, please remember that those various grants have various expiration dates. Some of them are out to September of 23, some of them are out to September of 24. So there is time to continue to work with our funding partners to sort of figure out a plan whereby we can transition out of the federal funding and over to permanent or reoccurring funding. So that clearly is a conversation that we need to continue to have with the county government, because if you add all these numbers up, right, it's a big number. And there has to be a plan to get there from here, and that's some of the work now heading before us. In the program enhancement category, and again, in the interest of time, we do not intend to go line by line, but it is really important to note there really are 3 different categories of flavors of funding. Those that are unhighlighted, so those that are essentially no highlights going all the way across, are exact matches. So if we simply look at the very first line, you'll see that we asked for 1.0 FTE, $78.8 thousand for an adapted PE teacher specialist, and that is exactly what's recommended, 1 FTE in that exact dollar amount. So that's an exact match all the way across. If you go just slightly further down, in the very first banded highlight in yellow, and we'll use assistant principals specifically for this example, you requested 11.0 assistant principals at a cost of slightly more than $1.5 million. The recommendation at this stage is for 8.0, so it's partially funded, not all funded, and that's why that is highlighted in yellow with an approximate revenue source of $1.1 million. And then if you go down to the very next highlighted item below that, you'll see another highlighted item, yellow, but this is the third category. So this is where the Board of Education requested X, but the recommendation is not to move forward with that in terms of FTE and fiscal appropriation. So in this category example, the very first one you'll see is the Board of Education's Constituent Service Liaison, where we asked for 1.0 and $120,000. The recommendation at present stands as 0 FTEs and $0 allocated towards that. Again, in the interest of time, we do not intend to go through each and every one of these. We'll certainly dive deeper into them, but you'll see there are thematically a number of focus areas. So I want to abundantly make clear the following points. One, all of the required elements that are part and parcel with the blueprint legislation are fully accounted for and fully funded. So check the box there. The second piece is all of the requirements that come with the maintenance of effort requirements of the state, and understanding that they were modified somewhat this year, they have been fully accounted for. So there are no disputes or disagreements in that category either. The Board of Education, both in your budget deliberations and then in communications with the county executive, made a couple things very clear, right? Social, emotional, and student safety is a big thematic concern of this Board of Education, and you'll see a large amount of support for those categories. Secondly, special education, again, a category writ large, was a very large priority for the superintendent and his board, and you'll see a tremendous amount of supports for our special education population, as is true also for our pre-K and our English language development requirements, not only for the ELA teachers and paraeducators, but also for the bilinguals, because again, we all know that the families and students that require linguistic supports continues to grow here within Anne Arundel County. There are a lot of teachers in these positions. The positions that are required for us to essentially maintain the current class size averages or slightly improve on those were funded. What was not funded, though, were the large asks that we had for class size reduction to make up for those prior years, right? Earlier in a decade ago, when we were not fiscally able to really support the FTE request that we had. But again, the teachers that are required for us to sort of at least maintain, and in many cases improve, but maintain our current class size ratios were fully funded in here. Lastly, I want to highlight a couple of things that are not up in the compensation category, but still are in the compensation category. One of which is the funding enhancement for our temporary substitute teachers. So the Board of Education asked for a $10 a day increase. The recommendation is for $5, so that was partially funded. The Board of Education asked for an increase for our TSAs, which are our support assistants, again dealing mostly with the special education arena. That was fully funded. And the Board of Education asked for funding for our contractual bus drivers and bus attendants. That was fully funded as part of the executive's request. And again, I'm highlighting that because they are compensation, but they weren't in the upper compensation category, so I did not want us to overlook that. I believe that sort of hits the highlights, Mr. Superintendent. I don't know if there's any other individual line items. It is a lot to digest. And in lieu of going through line by line in the next hour, I kind of thought it best to just hit the highlights and then maybe reserve time for questions. And certainly the board members are going to require soak time with this document.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to the team. I think you hit all the right highlights as the big picture is developed, but we're glad to take any questions the board members have.
Okay, a reminder to board members, 2 questions, and if you have commentary, reserve that for a second round. So, Ms. Schalheim?
Yes. First, I just want to say thank you to this team before us for quickly gathering this information. This was just presented to the world at the end of last week, so thank you for that. I do have a question about 1 or 2 of these. With the buses, and my calculator, I just don't remember the figure. For the transportation line item, buses for prismatic calculated shortage, this was obviously for existing capacity issues, and how many buses does the 932,100 represent?
13.
13. So we asked for 26 and we got 13.
Originally, we asked for 32.
We asked for 32 and we got 13.
And then by the time we got to the board's phase, that had whittled down further. And we made a promise to this board and to the county government that as the prismatic work continued, we were going to refine those yet further. And so at the point where the decision had to be made by the county executive, 13 was the correct mathematical value.
Is that still the correct mathematical value upstairs?
Yes,
or downstairs, or wherever the office is? Yes, thank you. And then, you're right, I'm going to need some soak time with this, but going to the funding cliff ones, the one that was partially funded, does that represent the most immediate expiration date of that funding? Are we doing, was the thought, like, I have a couple $1 million, I'll throw it at the one that's going to sunset first?
So I think the thinking is that this is clearly an area. We've benefited tremendously from the extra hands within the classroom that this funding has provided, certainly as our students continue to sort of re-enter the school environment and have the recovery requirements and the additional supports that go around that. I think that's probably just a decision that, because there's a combination of human capital items here and then
like tech and stuff.
Technology and other things.
Yeah.
So I think this is to begin to make inroads into some of the human capital elements of it, and quite honestly, we'll have to figure out the rest of it as the revenue picture, continues to either evolve or improve over time.
Yeah, about to the tune of $16.5 million is my calculation. It's the delta. All right, I probably will have more thoughts, but this is extraordinarily helpful, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schalheim. Ms. Frank?
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, Alex, for all of the hard work on this. You pointed out in your first example of the assistant principals, and we requested 11 FTEs. We got 8, and then there was a differential that was highlighted. If we go to the next page and then you look at the vans for non-public student transportation, we requested 8, and it says that 8 were funded, but there's a differential of 100,000. So can you explain
Certainly.
that? Thank you.
Yeah, so that is a combination of recurring costs, which are the positions required to drive the vans, the fuel, the tires, the oil. But part of it was one-time non-recurring costs, which was the acquisition of the vehicles themselves. So because that was not a recurring expense, that was backed out. We actually do receive in our capital funding for vehicles, for example, which is more applicable to sort of a one-time. So this is not a negative. That's the first half of the answer. The second half is we also competed for and got a grant for this as well, and the grant was fully funded, and the grant will also take care of some of the vehicle costs. So this is kind of sort of prudent and judicious budgeting, right? You typically don't want to put in an operating budget one-time expenses to the degree that you don't have to, and the county avail themselves of that opportunity. We're not at all concerned with this reduction. There is a mechanism to get us right exactly back to where you wanted us to be.
No, that's exactly perfect. Thank you so much for the explanation on that.
Ms. Ellis? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I?
Yes, thank you from me as well for all the hard work. Dr. Arlotto, when you requested 11 assistant principals, I assume that there are particular places that those assistant principals are needed. How does this work when you get partial funding? Do you have a list, like a priority list? Because I know that this is one of the great needs at Piney Orchard. And so I just wonder how this will impact and how you make those decisions.
Sure, thank you for the question. So so yes, we have a priority list, but it's also, understand, 11 is not the number we really need. 11 was the number we asked for this year,
Right.
hoping to build that stable of assistant principals available to us into the future. So this 11 wouldn't have solved all of our problems.
Right.
So what we are left with is exactly that, going back to the priority list with the team and saying, okay, if that number 8 makes it all the way through the county council and gets funded, which of those schools would we move? So Piney Orchard is certainly near the top of the list, as are our middle schools. We have middle schools that have 2 assistant principals and 3 grade levels. We also have still a number of elementary schools that don't have an assistant principal at all. So we'll look at that priority list and then allocate an assistant principal to those schools.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, I'm sorry, Ms. Schallheim asked about the number of buses, and I heard your answer, but I'm not sure I fully followed it. So I know we talked all along, we were going to ask for what we needed at the time, and that number may come down. So is the amount in the county executive's recommended budget what we are anticipating needing now, or is this lower than what we need for the number of buses?
We believe it's right size at present, so we
Okay.
believe we're where we need to be.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
And it's not direct to your question, but as you may recall, as part of the Crofton High School, the final year of the Crofton High School build that was fully funded, there were an additional 2 buses built into the growth of high school. So it's really 15 buses. 2 of them absolutely have to be for the Crofton High School
Right.
project, and that was fully funded. So I just want to make sure that the buses were in more than one place, and I wanted you to have a full answer.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, and first off, us being able to meet our obligations is terrific, and that speaks droves to all of you guys' dedication and efforts, the amount of time and commitment, and you have to have the buy-in on the advocacy. You have to care about our students, and you guys care deeply, as do most. I have a couple questions just specifically for, I know there's a lot to digest here, but specifically as it relates to technology and the funding that we received, but more importantly, the funding we did not receive. So if I'm looking in my Escher funding cliff, I have 2 aspects of technology funding that got zeroed out. Instructional technology, which is the person who oversees the management system that all of our our entire fleet uses, correct, as it relates to the instruction of the students. And then I have the technology number which is not an FTE, but a reflection on being able to maintain the resources that we now have built into our curriculum for our students to be able to learn as well as catch up with learning, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then I have here, under program enhancements, there was 3 under technology. The information security management that got funded, correct?
Correct.
But the technology support services and the telecommunications specialist, one was partially funded. We asked for 12 and we got 4. And these are, correct me if I'm wrong, the people who actually are in the schools helping the students, the parents, and the staff actually be able to do what they need to do with the technology, correct? Like, this is the people who, when the
Typically,
parent
yes,
does.
exactly.
Okay. And the same goes with, now, the telecommunications specialist, that's not in the wheelhouse directly of the students, or is that's part of our telecom system as a whole of how we communicate as a system, correct?
So we've got, simple answer is we have about 135 sites, and we have 2 people that that repair and manage and install and reprogram the phones for 135 properties. So we were hoping to divide the county up into thirds instead of in half as it currently is, so we could be more responsive to any sort of telephone outages or reprogramming requirements or anything else in that arena.
Okay, because I think technology has emerged, and we've always wanted to do better with it. I think after, in our postscript of emergency management, I'm a little concerned here and a little jaw-struck that, you know, this is the backbone, like it doesn't work without it, and we're trying to make that appropriate for our students and our kids. And, you know, technology is how we are moving and is what we continue to lean into as an industry to be successful, to be competitive. So was there any explanations provided as to why these were chosen? I know there's a limit of money and you have to pick priorities, but I was just wondering, was there a catch-up plan on some of the technology stuff that we have implemented, or are we at risk of losing, like, you know, having enough Chromebooks, having enough technology for our kids to be successful? Like, where are we at with this?
So the answer to that is no. There's no looming expiration. So we're talking about the FY23 budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are no looming expirations that are not covered to get us through FY23. But as we get to FY24 and FY25, that's when we begin to hit some of those cliff items. And that's why I said, while there is not a two-day issue, there is a looming cliff issue that we're going to have to continue to work with our funding partners to transition out of the one-time funding and into permanent recurring. So that's work ahead of us still that all of us are going to have to collaborate on. But we have a little bit of time to work some of that out.
So this is like when you go to buy the roof, you need the roof now, and they give you a year of 0 interest, and the hope is you're paying for it all along in those coming 12 months so that you're not just stuck with one big fat payment requirement. And this was that first piece investment, right? Just like we did with the funding enhancements. So this was sort of, we wanted to plan this out, or
So I think
stage it out?
you actually, I think you used a phrase earlier that I think probably best describes this, right? There's always a scarcity of resources, and you always got to prioritize, and you always got to make decisions. And some decisions are closer, and you got to make those now, and some of them you can maybe put off a little bit and hope you get lucky. Because again, we still have federal funds for some of this stuff, right? So I think it's a prudent decision-making process that you got to take care of today, and then you sort of plan for things that you know are going to be coming due. This this is a terrific down payment and certainly takes care of all of the today needs, but it does not account for all of our future needs. And that is absolutely work and conversations and dialogue that is going to have to be had with our funding partners over the course of the next 24 months.
Okay, so the bottom line, though, because you see a lot of technology pocketed in these things everywhere. The bottom line is that we will be successful with our existing and the couple, the 4 FTEs provided for.
Right. I mean, again, there's a sound plan in place to get us around to next June, and then, but by then we'll already be talking about that following fiscal year, right?
Correct.
So that's a simple answer. The more complex answer is this is not the final answer in the budget. The two, right? Our county council has yet to even hear this news, let alone be able to analyze it and weigh in on their own accord. So there might be opportunities for improvements yet between now and June 15th.
Correct, because as long as it was in our budget, there's an opportunity to swap out or add in if money is found, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Dent?
So I'm a little bit optimistic here. I might be too optimistic. I just want to say I think that is a hand clap for all the work that you put in and got the budget through the county. I've worked there, done that, so kudos to all of you all for getting through this and getting the amount of money that you have gotten. That's the first one. My question, though, is that you started out by saying that we were, very focused on the special education program. So my question is of the leftover positions that we're asking, what can we do to get this from to 90? I mean, that's a 53 personnel deficit. That's a lot. I don't even know if as optimistic as you're being, as that sounds like that's something that we can actually accomplish. So how confident are you in with the things that you did get? Great, kudos. But for the things that we didn't get, such as special education, how confident that we'll be able to get the funding through grants or other alternative funds to be able to fill those 53 positions?
So A, I'm not an optimist, but B, I'm generally very confident. So I don't know where that leaves you. But no, I think that the work, so you're speaking to the work that lies ahead, right? Just like the superintendent recommends a budget to you annually in December, right? And then this board then studies that, takes input from other sources, hears from staff, et cetera, and then ultimately you craft your own budget. And that's where we are here. So tomorrow that process begins now, right? They've received the county executive's recommendation. We are going to bring the county council, which is the ultimate fiscal authority, the ultimate decision makers, right, up to speed with the current set of recommendations. They not only then get to work on sort of crafting, modifying, potentially adding to our budget, but they're going to be doing that same thing for all of the other departments across this, the expanse of county government, plus the community college, plus the library, plus the health department, et cetera, right? So in prior years, the county council has been able to make some additions or some, improvements. That has occurred almost every year. But you got to be a little realistic with that too, right? So at the bottom line, the county council funded 424 of our 745 positions. That's the largest recommendation in the history that any of us can remember or ever look up. I mean, this is the best funding posture that we've ever had going into this, this stage. So are there opportunities for improvements? Absolutely. That's what we're going to be advocating for the next 45 days. But are they going to get us from 425 up to 745? That's a little too optimistic even for a non-optimist.
Yes.
It's good to want things.
Thank you, Ms. Dent. Mr. Silkworth?
Thank you, President Tobin. I don't have any questions. I have a comment or two. I want to thank Dr. Alata and his entire staff for the courage to put forth a budget that really reflects what we need for our students. I gave, many of us, when the budget was presented, we gave a standing ovation, and I do that as I speak now. I would also like to thank the county executive, Stuart Pittman, and his entire staff for the very same thing. Our sincere thanks for this historic, collaborative effort for our kids, our staff, our schools, our communities. And let's not forget, I've been through many, many budgets. I'm very optimistic, Alex. We have a fully funded capital budget. I don't know that's ever happened in the past. This historic funding helps us meet the critical needs of our students, staff, schools, and communities. So I thank you so much. Let the collaboration continue. This is, in fact, a huge down payment on the future of our students and our schools. And as I said, I echo what Ms. Dent said. I am very optimistic and confident as long as this collaborative process, which was marvelous, as long as it continues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. Ms. Schalheim.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I do have a comment since we're in the second round. To the English language development teachers and technicians, 27.3 requested, 20.3 funded to this point. What's the breakdown between teachers and techs with that number?
Yeah, so the differential is the 6.3 teachers. We have the teachers, not the techs.
We have the teachers and then -7 techs.
Right. So all of the certificated teacher positions were funded.
Okay.
It was the technicians that were not.
That there
were
was a
not
delta
funded.
on. Okay. All right, great. What was my other thought? Oh, dear. So, yes, I remember. All right. Going back to Ms. Dent's optimism, and it's good to want things. It's true. We all want 50 more positions. We all want way more positions than even what we asked for, although I do agree with Mr. Silkworth's contention that this was an amazing budget from the start, and I thank Dr. Alato and the team for that. And it was, and we added to that. There's some incredible things, even brought forth by our fabulous student, member of the board. And I'll let her talk about that part, because I don't want to steal her thunder. But Ms. Amasori, you're amazing. So going back to the optimism, now is the time, we talk about lobbying a lot, for us all, if we want more in this budget, and that would be a very tough mountain to climb because this is pretty incredible, your lobbying has to go to the county council now. To all of the members, I meet with nearly all of them every year and have since I've been in one of these 8 seats. And speak to specifics of what you want added back in. Unlike any other part of the county budget, they can add back into the education budget, but the money has to come from somewhere, and it don't grow on trees. So it would have to come from somewhere else in the budget to fill a hole here. Now, they could technically cut this budget. I don't think they will, and I ask that the county council, if you're listening from home, please don't. We like this very, very much. And you'll get a phone call from me soon. But that is where our lobbying and our attention should be, and I just wanted to make that clear, although it took a sec to get there. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Omasori.
So I was rather quiet when it came to the questions, and I know that our job as board members is to want and to kind of be insatiable when it comes to what's in the budget, getting as much as we can. And so a lot of the conversation is focused on what hasn't been approved. But I will take the moment to thank you all for what has been approved, the work that you've done to get us to this historic budget. I only have a year on the board, as we all know, So for my year to be the time when all of the capital budget gets approved is, for lack of a better term, really crazy. And so I thank you, I thank Dr. Olato, your office, your employees. I thank county executive for, again, not as though there are parts of the budget that are more important than others, but I will say that I noticed, and I've been smiling about it the whole time I received this paper, that the provision for menstrual products was fully funded, which is historic, I will say, because for my sisters, my mother, for my friends who menstruate, for myself, to think that the students who will be in ACPS will have menstrual products, will not have to worry or text a friend to come and save them while they're in the bathroom during class, is something that I could not have imagined. And I don't want to get emotional, but the fact that it was approved under my time on the board just means the world to me. And it honestly makes me envious of those who get to stay in ACPS after I will leave, because you know, I'm happy that I get to do something that makes me jealous of those who will stay behind when I leave. So thank you so much for this budget. Thank you to all of the people who came together to make it look the way it does. Although, you know, we still want more, but I can only give the greatest of gratitude for the amendment being passed and fully funded. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Ellis, did you put a button on again? Okay.
I did. One more follow-up. So obviously, I think that that number for the special education teachers jumped out at all of us. We all recognize what a great need that is, and I'd be very surprised if the county executive didn't see that as well. So my question, probably for you, Dr. Arlotto, is while we have such a great need, and we had requested, I'm sorry, what was it, 93 positions for the special education, the county executive determined 40 was the right number for this budget. Is it possible that the thinking was that as much as we could use those 93 special education teachers in the current climate, it's just a very unrealistic goal to hire 93 special education teachers? Could that be the thinking? I think it's important to hear your thoughts on it as we advocate for the budget.
Sure, thanks for the question. So I don't want to ever assume that I understand or can interpret the thinking of the county executive or his budget team. Mm-hmm. Certainly that was a question asked of us in all of these categories. Could you find that many psychologists or counselors or special educators or teachers or bus drivers or whatever it was? That was certainly a question, and I expect to get the same question from the members from the county council as well. What is the reality in us being able to hire 93? That is not, as you all are well aware, and seasoned builders of the county public schools budget, we don't pull numbers out of thin air, right? These are numbers that we believe are needed based on the needs of our students, as well as talking with HR and their ability to hire. So we put that number forward as something that we thought we could hire for based on, but certainly you asked a good question, and that is absolutely a question that the county executive and his budget team asked our team, and it's certainly a question I expect to get from the members of the county council as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. And that's 93 positions in addition to whatever openings, because we're certainly going to have turnover. Yeah,
we
so
will
it
certainly,
is,
right.
It is a challenge.
Those
so
are addition
right.
to the positions that we currently have,
right,
vacant or not.
I know
right.
that is a huge challenge for our HR team, and I appreciate your confidence that
and Ms. Ellis, you know, challenge or opportunity, pick your words, but much like the answer that I've more fully answered, there are, and going back to Ms. Den as well, there are many more special educators that are in this, not in this line. In fact, under the commitments category, there was 70.4, and then there are special educators inside of the Crofton Ask, inside of the alternative elementary school therapeutic ask. So there are other special educators that are inside of some of those other programmatic areas that are still special educators, just not on that one line. So the number actually is far greater than that 40 that's right there.
In terms of what was funded.
Correct, recommended for funding at this point. Correct.
Yep, right.
So there's a lot of hiring that's going to have to happen in the
Yeah.
special education category.
Thank you. And then finally, while we're giving thanks, I see the 4.5 positions for the teen parenting program has made it through the county executive's recommendation. I hope to see that line item stay there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Silkworth, did you put your light back on? No. Okay. So I think that's it. I will just ask additionally, I'm assuming the answer is similar to what we heard earlier regarding ESSER funding. The Virtual Academy 60 positions, we're set for a year or two on that, I'm assuming, based on the way that was.
We have one
We have
more
1
full
year.
year.
Okay, so that's clearly something else that we have to advocate for in the next year. I will add my thanks. I agree with everyone's comments, both that there's always more that we need, but I think this is a huge down payment, and I'm very grateful to see this. I said on the night that we voted on the budget we presented to the county executive that what we did represented the real cost of education. And I'm very grateful that the county executive and his staff seem to have heard us. Because these are very real needs, and I will say to the public, if you are listening, yes, you need to be advocating with the county council if this is something you care about, but please understand, funding for our schools is an investment in all of our futures, whether you have children in the school system or not. And we as a state and as a county tend to survive economic downturns and other crises far better than much of the rest of the world. And that's not by accident. We have a highly educated workforce, a well-educated workforce. And so long as we continue to have that, we will all do better. So I hope that everyone understands out there that this is a continuing process. It is of value to each and every one of us. And finally, I will say to Ms. Omasori, with regard to her amendment that she brought, for which I was very grateful, and I'm grateful we passed it, and I'm very grateful the county council heard it. I recently returned from a work trip to Kenya. I spent much of my childhood in Africa. I routinely went to local public schools throughout Africa. I routinely had friends who missed school several days a month. For one reason and one reason only: menstrual products were not available. We are the wealthiest country in the world. We are, by some counts, the wealthiest state in this country, and we are among the wealthiest counties in this state. There is no reason then that any girl living here should ever compromise her education for lack of these products. So I am tremendously grateful for the county executive hearing this, and I'm tremendously grateful to Ms. Omasori for advocating for this. Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. Thank you, Mr. Sheknovich, Mr. Stansky, Ms. Seaman. I'm sorry? I know, but I just want to thank you for this, because the operating budget is a whole separate thing and is huge. We'll have time to thank for the others. So on to the capital budget.
Thank you. And while the board's assistant switches exhibits, you should have the county executives proposed as of April 29, 2022, FY23 capital budget, which is the first page, and then the 6-year plan directly behind that. So similar to the operating budget, the FY23 capital budget represents historic funding levels at both the states, so the state of Maryland, as you are probably well aware and understand that the state of Maryland is putting in a tremendous amount of money into infrastructure, both in terms of the traditional funding through the Interagency Commission on School Construction, plus the new Built to Learn Act, Maryland Stadium Authority. So there is a tremendous amount of state funding coming forward. Our county executive is proposal put forward all of the matching funds. So message number one is all of the matching funds required to fully leverage and take advantage of all the historic funding from the state was fully funded. And then the county executive's recommendation went above and beyond that and fully funded, I believe, Ms. Seaman Crawford, first time?
Yes.
First
My
time.
30 years.
First time ever in her 30 years here, the capital budget. So traditionally you'll see off to the left there's a legend. We've often seen projects banded in a red or a blue font that represent items that either weren't funded or were partially funded. Pardon me, that simply doesn't occur this year. It is a fully funded, down to the exact dollar value budget that fully aligns with what the Board of Education had requested, and again takes full advantage and leverage of the historic state investment in school construction as well. There are, in the out years, as there always are, there are some discrepancies in terms of what was requested and what is funded, but those are always worked out as time marches forward. The county does always take a very cautious approach to capital debt affordability. We are, as a county now, I think you may have heard a county executive extol, rated essentially as a AAA county by both in a major bond underwriting or credit issuing entities. So we want to maintain our fiscal prudence, and we want to continue to demonstrate that we have good reserves and a good sound capital budget plan, and that we're not unduly placing debt on for future generations or the out years. So it is a very healthy FY23 investment. It represents a very healthy investment in the out years as well. And just like in other years, while there's work to be done, that will all be taken care of over time. So that does, we don't really have any reservations or outright concerns either with respect to the capital budget. And with that, Madam President, we'll turn it back over to you and the superintendent and your colleagues.
Thank you. Ms. Schulheim.
So I was waiting to talk about this because we were talking about the operating budget before, but my eyes welled up when I first heard this. This is incredible and historic, and so I thank County Executive for this. This is a tremendous gift to our school, to our students, and to our communities now and for many, many years to come. It's pretty incredible. I have one just slight question on the third page. The Old Middle North design is zeroed out for 25 and 26, FY25 and FY26, which is where the bulk of the monies are. My guess is for the construction of that future fine facility. Are you concerned at all with that, with those zeros? And because a lot, that 5-school project, it's kind of like dominoes. We have to get all the pieces in place to make it work. So what do you think about that one?
Yeah, so no, I'm not concerned. I mean, obviously on paper there appears to be some concern. I am not. I think the fact that the county fully funded 100% all of the planning and design portions of it is an absolute commitment towards that project. Every project design has a shelf life. They would not have put forward $7+ million for that. There are some capital debt affordability anomalies. I won't go into the details, but it is what it is because we have to meet some other triggers or ratios. But the county is fully fully aware, is fully committed to the project, and we absolutely believe that they will, that we will resolve those, if not in this cycle, then certainly by the time this board sees this budget next time.
Well, I'm delighted. I'm thrilled. It makes me emotional, and it's just incredible. And hopefully, when all these schools get built, they'll have solar on them. Okay, thank you. That was intentional to make at least one of the three of you smile. I got one.
Okay, I see no more lights. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Okay. We will now move to public comments. Ms. Carrie Skinner, speaking on item 3.01, County Executive's recommended FY 2023 operating and capital budgets. Good morning, good afternoon. Sorry.
Good afternoon. Okay. Good afternoon, Dr. Alato, President Tobin, and members of the board. My name is Carrie Skinner, and I am a parent of 2 children at Piney Orchard Elementary School. First, let me thank you for the action you've taken for the out-of-area transfers options for Piney Orchard families, as well as for the work that's been done on the budget just presented. Like most families, we are not seeking an out-of-area transfer. I'm here today to urge you to adequately staff Piney Orchard School with necessary positions fulfilled by the county executive's generous budget. Piney Orchard will be larger than 10 of the 19 AACPS middle schools, and therefore staffing allocations should align to other schools of its size. Specifically, at least 1 additional assistant principal, several additional literacy teachers and special educators, and an additional school counselor. Teachers have reported numerous TAs and TSAs are needed to support large classrooms, and additional lunch and custodial staff are imperative. Parents have stood before this board requesting additional staff members, and county executive has generously funded those positions. Please take final action to ensure the necessary positions are allocated to Piney. With the addition of the needed staff to support a school of this size, it's also necessary to provide additional parking. This was not requested by the school system as a 2023 budget item for the county council to fund. Had it been, it would have been fully funded with the rest of the capital budget. A creative solution to the lack of parking for school staff, not to mention parents, needs to be addressed immediately. I'd like to add, the county council noted in his budget video that in the fall, Piney Orchard would be at an unacceptable 140% state-rated capacity. We exceeded those rates months ago. At best, Piney Orchard will be at 160%. Please take effort to alleviate those, address those issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Skinner. And that concludes our public commentary for today. Okay, we're going to move on to reports. Item 5.01, President's Report. I have a couple of things I want to mention. Some congratulations and shout outs. First, a belated shout out, because I was unable to do it last time, to a couple of rock stars at Annapolis High. There was an announcement of the ProStart Teacher and Student of the Year. This is specifically with regard to Ms. Freeberg, who teaches in the restaurant management program, and we also had the Student of the Year. What's her name? Ms. Alexandra Martinez. And that is an extraordinary honor, and I just want to congratulate them. The ProStart programs are fabulous programs. Ms. Freeberg goes on to be nominated for the National Teacher of the Year, which I believe occurs in a few days in Washington, D.C. I also want to give a huge thank you to North County High School, who invited Mr. Silkworth and myself to attend their Avid Showcase. Thank you to Principal Jefferson and Assistant Principal McAlilly and all the other folks who allowed us to spend the day with them, observing some spectacular teaching and some amazing students. So a shout out to North County. And it's just always fun to tour now North County with Mr. Silkworth because, you know, you're like, yeah, you need passes to get next to him. So, and finally, a huge thank you to all involved, obviously Ms. Carol Ann McCurdy at the top of that list, for the Excellence in Education event last week, which was just fabulous. And the nominees and honorees were all extraordinary and made us all so proud. But obviously a particular congratulations are due to Mr. Whitaker of Cat North for our 2022 Teacher of the Year. And I guess Cat North has now upped the bar in terms of showing up in incredible matching shirts and, you know, with, I think there was glitter involved. So, you know, the rest of the schools are now going to have to keep up. But congratulations to Principal Rose and all the other folks at Cat North who were there. But I know Mr. Whitaker will be an incredible Teacher of the Year representative for AACPS. And it was just a joy to be there, to be in person, and just to see the sheer happiness of everyone who was there. So thank you to everyone. Thank you for a couple of minutes to make those comments. With that, item 5.02, Ms. Frank, Superintendent Search Committee report.
Thank you, President Tobin. The superintendent search report for May is that, to recap, during the month of March, the board's consultant, HYA, met with various community and system-wide stakeholder groups to develop a leadership profile report. This report was presented to the board on March 23rd, and the formal posting and advertising of the AACPS superintendent position began on March 24th. On April 30th, the superintendent application process was closed. HYA, our consultant, reports that there are 47 applications in the system, of which 30 have been completed, submitted, and vetted. The top 15 candidates have been identified and are being further reviewed. At this juncture, we believe that the slate will consist of 8 to 11 solid candidates. HYA will now utilize the leadership profile report that was developed to assist the board with candidate scoring. Board members will receive all of the submitted applications, and interviews will be conducted shortly thereafter. The committee continues to work with the consultant and is fully committed to finding the most qualified applicant. Per state law, a superintendent or interim superintendent must be in place by July 1st. If the board is unable to find an exceptional applicant, an interim will be appointed, and we will continue to update the public and the board throughout the process. Please continue to follow the progress of this committee by visiting aacps.org/superintendent search, which has the leadership profile report, press releases, and other relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. Item 5.03, school hours report. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. I don't have any big updates today, except information did go out to all families that the schedule has been updated on the website for school hours for next year. So parents are able to go in and find their school there to make their preparations. Again, there could still be some tweaks, but I don't think we should expect any big changes from here. Families can continue to access that website as information continues to be added and updated. We are still in the process of creating our virtual information sessions, so the public should be hearing information very soon about when they can view those and access those, and they will be available. It's not a one-time deal. You can access that once they're uploaded. I think that's all for today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ellis. Item 5.04, Ms. Dent, the Policy Committee report.
Good afternoon, Dr. Tobin, Mr. Silkworth. and members of the board. The policy committee has met twice. Yesterday, we met again to discuss two policies. One that you'll see forthcoming that I think you'll be very happy with is talking about parents, teen parents. That's forthcoming. It was put out by the state. Our policy does, it not only encompass the guidance from the state, but we also went an extra step to make sure that our teen parents know that not only that we care about them, and although they're gone right now, it was very exciting to echo what Mrs. Ellis said, that we not only have a program here internally in the school system, but we will also have an option for those parents that wish to go outside of the school system. So we're very excited about that policy. Overall, the policy committee is moving pretty fast. We are now at a point to where we are made a record. We did our meeting yesterday in 31 minutes. So, efficiency is our goal. Efficiency not only in our policies, but in also ensuring that our policy adhere to not only the intent of this board, but also the intent of the AACPS. And with that, that's all I have, subject to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dent. Yes, and I can attest to the fact that Ms. Dent runs a tight ship, so thank you. Now to item 5.06, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Arlotto.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I have a couple of brief updates for you for today's meeting. Bus transportation registration begins today. As this board is aware, AACPS is instituting a registration process for the 2022-2023 school year for any student that is eligible for transportation. Beginning today and throughout the week, parents or guardians of students who are eligible for transportation will receive an email specific to each student in their household that will allow them to register their child for transportation for next school year. Parents should respond as quickly as possible. Subsequently, every 2 weeks through June, AACPS will continue to send reminders to those that have not yet completed the registration process and new emails with a link to the registration form. Students who receive transportation as part of their special education IEP, as well as those that are homeless, will automatically be registered for the upcoming school year. Families of students in charter and contract schools should contact their school directly regarding bus transportation for next school year. Students whose families that do not complete registration forms will not be eligible to ride a school bus for the entire 2022-2023 school year, even if they reside within the transportation zone. So therefore, families who believe their student will need bus transportation at any point in the upcoming school year, are encouraged to indicate that they wish to have bus service on the form. We hosted another hiring event yesterday evening at Old Mill High School in partnership with the Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation, Department of Recreation and Parks, County Department of Health, the Department of Public Works, and the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Over 300 job seekers pre-registered for the event, and we had 150 walk-in registrations yesterday afternoon. The recruitment of bus drivers and aides was one of the focus areas, and our private bus contractors participated and had recruitment tables set up at the event. AACPS, along with the other county departments, are looking to hire in a variety of job areas, including crossing guards. As you know, magnet application season begins in the fall and culminates in seat offers to students in early spring. When the demand exceeds available seats, students are waitlisted. This year, there were 3,560 applications for our middle school and high school IB, PVA, and STEM magnet programs, with some students applying for more than one magnet program. Seat offers were made, for approximately 1,500 magnet seats. At this time, many students have accepted or declined their seat offer. When a student declines, we move to the next student on the wait list. This waitlist movement will continue over the next several months as families move out of the area or decide for their student to study at their home school instead of in a magnet program. Currently, there are 455 students on the magnet wait lists. This number will certainly decrease over the next 4 months. And finally, congratulations, as was already mentioned earlier, to Mr. Charles Whitaker, the HVAC teacher at Cat North, who was selected to be the Anne Arundel County Public Schools Teacher of the Year. Mr. Whitaker was selected from a very talented group of teachers and will well represent AACPS in the competition to be Maryland Teacher of the Year. The Excellence in Education Gala was a fantastic event last Tuesday and an awesome way to celebrate teaching and learning, and a great way to kick off Teacher Appreciation Week and Principal Appreciation Day. Thank you to all of our teachers and principals. And with that, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Arlotto. Quick question about the bus opt-in. So typically, it's pretty late in the summer when teens can apply for parking at their high school. But that being the case, it makes it very difficult for teens to know whether or not they're going to require bus transportation. Is it possible for schools to have their application process in the spring for the upcoming school year so that teens can take advantage of opting out of bus transportation?
So could we possibly, I'm glad to talk with the team about that. What I would encourage parents to do is go ahead and check the box and say, yes, they want transportation. That's what I think that's the best advice now, because certainly we can't at any time guarantee that their child would get a parking space. Many of the schools have plenty of parking for their seniors. Some do not, and there really is a great deal of competition. And so I would encourage those parents to go ahead and check the box on the form and register for transportation.
Right, and I get that's good advice for the parents to be sure that they're covered, but it seems like it would be, for our planning purposes, if we are able to have the registration in the spring, we might free up more seats that way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schalheim.
Yes, thank you. In terms of the hiring event yesterday, which I posted numerous times on my social media, since it was a hiring event, meaning that hires could have occurred yesterday on the spot, at least as I understand it, do we know if offers were made to any individuals and how many?
I don't.
I would love to know that if you could find out. I'm just wondering.
Well, I'll have to ask all of the different departments throughout the county if they made offers, along with all the bus contractors, Department of Health, Department of Recreation and Parks. I would have to ask them if they made any offers.
Okay, all right.
So I don't know who made offers to whom. Certainly I can ask our HR department if they made offers to anybody directly yesterday.
Yes, that's what I would like to know. Thank you.
Okay, glad to do that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, President Tobin. Dr. Arlotto, I think there's a little bit of anxiety still on the opt-in and the fear that the school system didn't get the information. Does our system provide a receipt or confirmation for the parents? With there being basically a penalty of your child will never be allowed to be on a bus for an entire school year if the information is not received by the deadline, there's growing anxiety of how do we confirm that efficiently that the school system actually did receive the form and that it's accurate. Like, is there a profile that is created or a confirmation receipt? So for example, for like senior awards, when the students go in to give their profile, if they go back in because they can't remember if they did it, or like I'm thinking we have, families with, multiple families, raising the child for divorces and whatnot. Is there something similar? Because that system tells the kid that, yeah, we already received your information. Is our opt-in program going to provide a receipt? for the parents so that they know with certainty that their kid is not going to be without transportation for an entire year and them possibly having to choose between their job and their students' mandated education if they needed that transportation. And so those are some of the concerns I'm hearing. Could you speak to what happens in the system as to how we know?
I will certainly find out.
Yeah.
So I can't speak with any certainty, but the technology division, as well as the student data division, are the ones that have been doing all the work in the background in terms of creating encrypted messages that go to the families that are student-specific. They can't be sent on to another family or another student. It has to be that family that replies for that student. So they've done all this work in the background. Also, with each subsequent message from the original, once a family has replied, they'll then get taken off the list so they don't get bombarded with messages once they have replied positive or otherwise. But I'll check with the team regarding to use your term, receipt that the family will receive to confirm that they have completed the process.
Yeah, because, I mean, not every family has open communication between two guardians, for example, and then there's just that knowing. But that's just some of the feedback I'm getting, because there is a lot of growing anxiety about did I get it, if I don't get it in, or if I get it wrong, my child's not going to be able to get their education, that there's a barrier there. So thank you for sharing that, and I look forward to that information so that when someone does give me a concern, I can, instead of having to look into it, I can get a nice, good, clean answer for them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dent.
Thank you, Dr. Tobin. So, Dr. Lotto, one easy question that's probably going to be a little bit difficult to answer. The opt-in option is there. However, you know, we have a lot of glitches. We have people that phone numbers change, all this other stuff. Is there a way, or are there documentation going home with the student that's potentially returning next year so their parents are aware that there's an opt-in process? That's one. And then the second one is, I know that we have a lot of media and social media outlets, as well as a lot of communication outlets to be able to get this information out. Is there any opportunity for us to put that out so that the students have it as well as the parents? And then on the second side of that, I know there is a way, but are we considering putting it out to the news media outlets and various different forms of communications outside of social media?
So let me see if I can answer all of these. Oh, that was one question. Oh, okay. We are using all of our regular social media outlets as well as letters that have gone home. We did not do a hard copy that went, say, in backpack mail. No, we didn't do a hard copy of this to all of the students. It was sent out electronically through all of the contacts that we have. We used all of the social media outlets, and there has been press already, and we'll continue to promote that so that everybody is aware. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see no more lights, so thank you very much, Dr. Arlotto. So we will move on to Section 6, Consent Items, Award of Contracts.
Ooh, let's bundle these. That's a motion.
I heard a second somewhere?
Yep.
Second.
Yeah, okay. All right, I gather we have consensus on that, or, okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. I recommend the Board of Education authorize the award of contracts as listed on today's agenda, 6.01 through 6.17.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Howell? Oh, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that, Ms. Corkadell.
Sorry, thank you, President Tobin. Just one really quick question. I just noticed security vestibules have been, how many, I know we had a magic list of ones that we needed to update, and, you know, they're in their own sort of funding pool. How many do we have left to to knock out as far as the security vestibule updates? Like, what percentage? I'm just looking like percentage-wise, but are we mostly there? Yeah.
So we're getting there. I'm a little hesitant, and please
Okay,
excuse
no,
my
I just
hesitancy.
caught my-
I'd like to report that, if I could, to the board in closed session.
Yeah, I just caught
as a
myself
safety and
as I was
security
doing
issue.
that. My apologies. I was, that is
Sorry, you
all
caught me
all
by
on me.
surprise, Ms. Corkadell.
No, I should know better because I've enforced that before, so my sincere apologies. As I was saying it, I was kind of pulling it
But I will
back
get a response
out.
from the facilities team as to how far along we are with and then report that to the board.
And, well, it was a similar question to also some of our roof and stuff. I was just getting to we've got a full funding, I guess was my bigger point, for a lot of our stuff. And so as we're looking to that, are we making now positive progress, do you think, towards some of our backlogs and some of these projects? Like we're starting to get to a caught up, or are we just tooling at baseline?
So I think we are too far from caught up at this stage, but getting our capital budget fully funded is a fabulous step forward. So as you know, there are years where we don't get, particularly for our backlog maintenance program, we don't get that full funding. So it just means that projects get pushed further and further back. Having that fully funded this year is a good step forward to getting some of those projects complete. But it's nowhere near the amount that we're going to need to get us completely caught up.
Yeah, because I see the roof replacements, and I just want to point out to folks that this is the result of that budget there.
Sure.
When you see these awards of contracts and you see these things come in, that is the result of that. And how many of these we're able to accomplish is definitely based on that funding. So, yes, I am very happy to see a maintenance budget intact and undiminished in an unheard of. I don't even know that I can even recall that in some odd going on now. Almost 20 years of reviewing the county's budget, sitting in a variety of seats. So I'm very, very happy about all that. And once again, apologies. I
Was that
should
a
have known
trick
better.
test on me? Because I totally failed it.
No, that's okay. I failed as the member, and it's all good.
I would just like to add that I'm delighted to see all the West County Elementary School contracts because we know Piney Orchard families are very concerned that is proceeding according to schedule, and all of the budgeting we've been talking about will help all of that proceed. So thank you. Okay, I believe we have no more lights. Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasori?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell? Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. We will move on to Section 7, Action Items. Item 7.01, Administrative Personnel Appointments. Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and/or appointed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I see no lights.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasori?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell? Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 7.02, Personnel. Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President. I recommend that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
So moved.
Second.
I see no lights. Ms. Howell.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasori?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. We will now move to policy revisions, third reading. Good afternoon, Ms. Ortiz. Dr. Alato.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Council.
Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I recommend approval of policy BCB, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I see no lights. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasore?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Nay.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadow?
Nay.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
6-2, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7.04, Sustainability Plan. Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President. I recommend board approval of policy EJA, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved.
Aye. I mean, second. I approve it, too.
Yeah.
All together now.
It's not 2 o'clock yet.
Yeah. I see no lights. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasore?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadow? Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 7.05, Pregnant and Parenting Students, Code JS. Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I recommend approval of policy JS, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved.
Second.
Jinx.
Ms. Frank?
I'll be brief because we're on a roll, but I do want to thank you so much, Ms. Dent, for your work in the policy committee. I don't get enthusiastic about everything that we do in policy, but I love this one, and so I really appreciate that you're running a tight ship and that you're getting it done and that we're getting some great policies. So thank you so much. And Ms.
Thank you,
Ortiz,
Carmen.
thank you as well.
Okay, I see no more lights. Ms. Howell?
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasore?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadow?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Yay.
Motion passes 8-0.
And before,
Yes.
if you don't mind, if I could just say thank you to Ms. Ortiz. This is a difficult time of year as you have gotten through the session and still able to push us forward in policy, so thank you.
Yeah. But yes, thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Okay, other action items, 7.06, Food and Nutrition Services pricing for 2022-2023 school year. Dr. Alato.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I recommend no increase in the food nutrition service pricing for the 2022-2023 school year, as Mr. Shaknovich and the wonderful Jody Reese join us. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Okay. Yes.
Second?
Yes. Sorry. We have the motion, we have the second. Yes, okay, but we have a couple of questions. So, Ms. Frank? Oh, is that your old light? Okay. Ms. Corkadow?
Thank you, President Tobin. Not a question, just an accolade. Ms. Reese, I don't know how you do it, and you manage it. But the fact that not only are we able to provide meals, but the meals are nutritious. They meet the needs of the students, where the students are. And the fact that you're able to maintain this level of budget under these conditions is just amazing. And thank you so much, Mr. Shaknovich. I know all of you guys just work so hard as a team, but your team is so incredibly awesome. I mean, I could spend an hour, and I'm not going to, with the accolades. But, I mean, this is a rock star who finds time also to work with our partners on top of what all of the demands that this entails. I mean, where on earth are you going to get a breakfast for $1.50 and be able to do it nutritiously, locally sourced, and all the other wonderful things that come along with it, and with a smile from the folks that you also manage in your spare time. Not that they need much management, because you guys have done such an awesome job in training and supporting them, but just kudos, and please extend that to your team. I know it's been a while since we've been up there saying hello, but I just can't say enough of great things. Thank you so very much.
I sure will. Thank you so much. And you know, it's a perfect timing to hear your sentiments, because it is School Lunch Hero Day on Friday, May 6th. So it's a perfect time to celebrate the great staff that we have here in Anne Arundel County. They truly are the hometown heroes.
Well, and I was just going to say, true heroes. These are these are our frontline COVID workers too, and our heroes. And I just want to say that our school district not only provided more, not just quantitative meals, but percentage to population meals than any other district in this state and region. And not only did they do that, they did that with heroism that we cannot even fathom here on this dais, but they had to deal with day to day. They were willing to, while everybody else was at home, going at home, going, oh my goodness, what do I do, what do I do? These folks were getting in their cars every single day and meeting our people who needed food, and did it without hesitation, and did it without the extra ask. And I wish we could just do more for them. I really do. And it's always because of leadership. And on the money side, Alex, you always find a way of getting us exactly what we need. And obviously we wish we could give more on this front, but because you guys have given so much. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ms. Corcado. But it really is Ms. Rissy and her wonderful team. I mean, and again, I want to highlight, it says under the discussion, this is the 8th.
Yep.
Right, the 8th consecutive year. And think about what we do in our own personal shopping, right, when we go to the grocery store or anywhere else. So it's an amazing testament to Ms. Rissy and her whole wonderful team, and really the way that they approach the business of food nutrition services, but without ever once losing sight of the children.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Schallheim.
Yes, I also want to extend my gratitude to you and your team. That you all are amazing. And to piggyback on a point that was just made, I assume that the school meal depth that had existed prior to COVID still remains, at least in some of the schools. Is that an accurate statement?
That is not, Ms. Schallheim.
That is not.
So we don't have any
cleared up?
school debt. At the end of every school year, there's no students that move forward to that following school year with debt. We still have students with money on account to purchase meals as we go back to the pre-COVID times and purchasing meals, but there's no negative debt. We have 0 in Anne Arundel County.
Okay. Because I was just going to say, going forward, if folks want to find a way that they can contribute it, if you're looking to make a charitable contribution, you can go onto the 21st Century Education Foundation, click donate, and then click from there. Of course, it's not working as fast as I wanted to at the moment.
I believe it's donate to bunches of school lunches.
Yeah, well, it's make a donation today. The second, if you scroll down, student meal depth or, it's student meal depth there. You can feed the kitty, as it were, and because as we get to a time where we're paying for lunches again, those things will exist again. I just remain in awe of you and your work, and I do have questions about the federal government and all these other things, but I'll leave it for another time. I'll send an email to see if there's been progress towards that. But just for today, amazing work, and thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dent.
So along with everyone else, congratulations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that it continues this year, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So my question goes to, and Dr. Arlotto, I think we spoke a little bit, but I've done a lot of more research since then. I'm still concerned about the nutrition, right? So yes, we didn't write, we're not raising the prices, right? But there's still a great amount of work that was done by AACPS, and so we got to manage everyone's expectations about the various different meals that they have gotten from the school, from the school itself, right? So how are you managing that communication?
So communication about the nutrition?
Yes.
I think that's my cup of tea for sure. I'm a registered dietitian. We have 4 registered dietitians on staff. So nutrition is the priority, and it's the first thing we look at prior to any of the finances of it or, how we're going to secure the food that we secure. On our website, we have all of our recipes, we have all of the nutrient breakdowns, we have all the allergy information, and then we work one-on-one with all the school nurses in the schools to make sure, you know, the best nutrition that tastes great, that keeps our students coming back for more. And if there's a special diet, I would say we probably are leading the charge nutritionally across the state of Maryland and across the country. So that's first and foremost, you know, fruits and vegetables, and filling their trays and allowing our students to take as many fruits and vegetables as they can is definitely a priority. It's on the website, and it's something we communicate every day as we see our students in the serving lines.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to add my congratulations and my thanks. And for the record, because I think this is important, I think the public really needs to understand not only that you do these amazing things, but how you do it. Because there's no question, if you're a member of the public and you're shopping in grocery stores right now, it's hard to see how we keep the prices the same. So could you give us sort of the quick and dirty on how we've been able to do that here?
I sure can. It's a little magic. A lot of support. You know, I think our staffing and, you know, to Ms. Corkadell's, you know, comments and everyone's, you know, to start it off, the staff are fantastic, right? They're there every day without question. They will do whatever it takes to feed the students as fast as they can and as efficient as they can. Secondly, the menu, especially post, you know, pre-COVID, we had a very elaborate menu that I still write to this day. I started writing it when I started in 1994, and I'm still the menu producer. But we streamlined the menu. So when things started to get a little bit crazy of what we were seeing from our manufacturers, and crazy in a good sense, right? Everybody's trying to buy certain products. We really streamlined and looked at what are the favorite items for our students, and how can we buy, you know, primarily 60,000 servings of our Korean barbecue meatballs, right? And not have all that variety, which might lead to a little bit of waste, right, if I have 3 or 4 entrees. So streamlining was key. Communication was the second step. I talk to vendors daily. Tyson Food, there's no hesitation ever to call and talk to a major manufacturer, distributor, one of our brokers, and say, what are you seeing? And we're always looking ahead. What's the next thing that might fall off? For instance, cereal. It's really impossible to buy cereal now, so we took it off the menu and found a replacement. Last thing on the menu, again, I think the more nutritious it is and the more it's accepted from students, our participation goes up. So as we increase participation, it increases our revenue, therefore allowing us to buy more product. And then lastly is the reimbursement rate. We are federally funded by 99%. During COVID, we had $1.15 more per lunch to buy food. So $1.15 sounds pretty small, but to me it's like we won the jackpot, right? $1.15 at 600,000 meals or 700,000 meals, lunches a month is a lot of money. So it really allows us to go look for new exciting items that taste great, that are nutritionally sound, and what's the price point so we can really make it work. So that's probably, that's my quick streamlined version of what we do every day.
That's amazing. I think we all should check in with you on futures for any investments we may have. But beyond that,
We're not allowed to speak about this.
I know. Well, yeah, but also just as Dr. Olato said, just an incredibly well-run business, quite frankly. So thank you for that. But thank you for what our students need probably more than anything else, which is just the basics, and for doing it with care and expertise and a clear love of what you do and of the students you serve and of the staff you oversee. So thank you for everything, and thank you for this excellent news. That is terrific. So we had the motion and the second, so Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Omasore?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. All right, moving on here to review items. Item 8.01, 2022 Maryland General Assembly Session Summary. Ms. Ortiz, I'm amazed you're still standing after this session.
Yes, for the record, again, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel, and the board had previously requested that I provide a verbal summary at a future board meeting of the legislative session. And so you should have received the memo that I put together last week with a summary of high-profile education-related bills. But basically, the General Assembly officially adjourned its 90-day legislative session at midnight on April 11th. It was their 444th legislative session and my 17th. It was very busy, and the third one that was impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. It was primarily held virtually. However, the Senate started moving towards in-person in March, so that allowed for me to go in and see people in person. So it was very nice to see faces live and in person. As I said, extremely busy. They considered about 2,500 bills and about 600 bond initiatives. So this election year session, and it being election year, made it, a little crazier than normal. So it's, you all saw a lot of the bills that came forward, but resulted in the passage of historic operating and capital funding, primarily due to federal stimulus funds and the positive economic boon of the state. The state had performed much stronger than originally anticipated, and public education, therefore, was a beneficiary of this funding. And so there was significant increases in state aid to support the implementation of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future and traditional school construction programming, as well as the newer Built to Learn Act program. And so, during the legislative session, I was super busy. I tracked about 400 bills. Some are very obviously education related, and many are not as obvious, but would impact us as a public agency, and submitted testimony on 110 bills, and that doesn't count all the, when they get cross-filed and if they get amended, so lots of testimony. I collaborated with various stakeholders, my Green Street folks, which consists of my colleagues from around, several of my colleagues from around the state and other LEAs, MABE, as well as PZAM, to basically, advocate on behalf of ACPS primarily and public education as a whole. And so I just wanted to highlight a few bills that I think, you have heard about or will be hearing about. And so one is House Bill 1450. It's the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Implementation Plans and Fund Alterations. So this bill, the governor allowed to go into law without his signature. The General Assembly was kind of strategic in ensuring passage of priority legislation by a certain date, which required the governor to act by a certain date. Because it's an election year, they can't turn around and override a veto next session because you will have new membership, right? And so any bills that they thought could be vetoed, they really tried to get to the governor within a time frame in which, if he vetoed, they could override. But he did not. He just allowed it to go into law without his signature. And essentially, this bill does a variety of things. It alters the distribution of sales and use tax revenues for the blueprint. It alters the dates by which the AIB, which is the Accountability Implementation Board, must adopt a comprehensive implementation plan. And this is important because the comprehensive implementation plan impacts what school systems, our individual implementation plans. As folks are probably aware, the AIB didn't get appointed until much later than expected, not until the fall. So they started kind of on a delay already, and obviously has impacted their ability to get work done. They literally didn't have staff until a couple months ago. And so anyway, it was important to allow for that extension since that will kind of set forth the, I don't want to say blueprint, but the blueprint for how the school systems will have to move forward. MSD has to develop criteria for approval or disapproval of the local implementation plans. And obviously, the locals have to submit those plans. It alters procedures for the procedures and timeline for AIB to withhold and release funding for schools. And so that's a good thing too, because it kind of delays when the AIB can withhold funding if, implementation plans are not approved. There's data collection that MSD has to do, and basically the bill takes effect on June 1st. There was virtual education legislation this year, and so obviously with the onset of COVID, the school systems were forced to move into virtual learning platforms. And while this has been allowed under, COMAR and the state, there wasn't really anything very specified in state law and how this should move forward. And so MSDE developed its criteria on, what school systems would have to show, and we all submitted sort of our plans, and we all meaning the local school systems, for approval by MSD on, what the plan to virtual education would look like. And so there were two competing bills, a House bill and a Senate bill, that ultimately became one. And so the legislation includes several provisions to update the delivery of virtual education. It establishes requirements for entities that may operate or administer virtual education, and that really speaks to like for-profit entities. There's a situation on the Eastern Shore where they have a consortium, and the majority in the legislature, there's not a fan of that necessarily, but it was done in a way that allows the Eastern Shore to continue operating, I think, for another year or two, but then they would have to kind of come into compliance with the new law requirements. So there was a lot of conversation around that. That does not impact us. Addresses student application, school accountability, teacher preparation, teacher and educational support, required student services, school policies, including class size, technology, and attendance. Again, these are things that we were doing, and so it's not going to impact AACPS as significantly as this law will impact other schools. It limits the number of virtual schools, requires that teacher preparation programming includes instruction and training on the skills to teach virtually, and so that's an MSD requirement. There are reporting requirements, and so this takes effect June 1st. On the student health side, there's legislation that has been introduced for a few years and finally passed this year, and it's House Bill 1118, Public School Student Attendance Excused Absences, and it deals with student mental health. And so there had been questions in the past about the way the bill was previously drafted because, a student health issue is a student health issue, right? Whether it's a mental health issue or physical health ailment. And so there were concerns about potential privacy issues with students. And so we worked with the sponsor and MABE and others to kind of try to address these issues. And so basically it requires MSDE and each local board to adopt a policy that treats an absence due to a student's behavioral health the same as health needs, in the same manner as absence due to other illnesses. A local board of education may not require a note from a physician to excuse such an absence, which was a point of kind of concern for us because the way originally drafted, the bill was kind of like unlimited, and we're like, yeah, no, we don't even do that. We don't do that now, right? At some point, there is concern if there are numerous absences of a student. So the legislation was amended, and we proposed an amendment that would basically be to a limited number of absences in accordance with our policy. So it would just, again, be treated the same way we do now with all illnesses. Students who are absent due to a behavioral health, mental health need must be informed of the opportunity to meet with a school mental health specialist but not required. I think it was required under the original draft, but that again raised some concerns. Like you can't require a student, to do that, but inform them of what's available. With athletics, there was legislation, House Bill 515 and Senate Bill 951, Education Student Athletes Uniform Modifications for Modesty, or otherwise known as the Inclusive Athletic Attire Act. This generated a lot of interest and discussion for sure. And so essentially, a school athletic association, a governing body of a public institution of higher education, or a board of a community college must allow a student to a student athlete to modify their uniform so that it conforms to the requirements or preferences of the student athlete's religion or culture, which I think most folks agreed with. But then the second part, which was amended onto the bill, or the athlete's own preferences for modesty, because that's a little bit more vague, and so there was a lot of conversation about that, but that ultimately passed. The bill does specify, however, that it has to be aligned with the existing uniform as far as colors, and it's really just like T-shirts and the shorts or things of that nature. So it does kind of narrow it down a little bit. One really great piece of legislation that was amended to be a little bit narrower, but we're very excited, is House Bill 743, Senate Bill 410. It's Teachers' Retirement and Pension System Reemployment. So this legislation that will go into effect this June 1st and go until June of 2024, so just for 2 years, allows a school system to basically hire up to 25 retirees. It was like unlimited originally, but they amended it to be a classroom teacher, substitute classroom teacher, teacher mentor, or principal without the retiree being subject to earnings limitation. And so there's, state law, and there's also federal law that impact, how long there has to be earnings limitation for someone who's retired. So this just gives us a little bit of relief in being able to hire some additional staff given the workforce shortage that, school systems and others are facing. So those are just some of the bills I wanted to highlight. Of course, there's like 12 pages of my memo, so if you have any questions on other legislation, I'm happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Shahan.
This is incredible work, and you're incredible. You are the expert on this for our school system, and by all accounts, one of the leading people amongst your colleagues doing this work in the state. I believe we put forth more testimony than any other jurisdiction in the state.
Oh, by far, yeah.
Yeah, and that
I think I'm just, Mabe submits a little bit more, but we're pretty close.
and that's incredible. And so, I just want to say, like, you're a gift to our school system and
Thank
to all 84,000 kids, because the work you do directly benefits them every year, and 17 years is an awfully long time to do it. So I hope for many, many more. And I just want to recognize Ms. Ortiz's expertise. We might serve on an occasional committee or have some lay knowledge regarding policy and legislation, but she is our expert, and she should always be recognized as such. I have just a couple quick questions. This was an issue that came up last year, maybe even the year before, the HR processing time situation,
Oh, yes.
21 days. Did that get resolved?
So, it was, improved.
Oh, goody.
This was, what was it, Fix 486 or something. So that was legislation from a few years ago that endeavored to better address potential child abusers, child sexual predators, in school systems. It really was derived from a few incidents or a couple incidents that happened in other school systems. And so essentially, we currently, under current law, and would always get frustrated when the legislators didn't start with this, so I'm going to start with this. Under current law, we have background checks. We have in-depth background checks. There is Child Protective Services checks into anyone who applies to work in the school system, and we have background checks on volunteers, et cetera. So let's start there, right? So even without that law, we have that. The legislators would forget that, and then some folks would get nervous. But this was like another layer that really didn't have to deal with like Child Protective Services or criminal. It's more of an employer kind of history check, you know, and so the way it was originally drafted was extremely cumbersome. It was like in perpetuity, and it would require applicants to list like all of their past employers and answer certain questions as to whether they've ever been accused of child abuse or child sexual abuse, disciplined, et cetera, right? Things that wouldn't arise to a criminal nature, but could still be extremely problematic. And so it took us 2 more sessions, but last session, that law was further amended to limit the time frame for 10 years because it was taking an incredibly long time for school systems to process. I mean, this applies to any of our contractors too, bus contractors, et cetera. Like they would have to do this as well. And so it was just taking an incredible amount of time to process these. So it was shortened to 10 years, and some other amendments were addressed to better streamline the process. And so it is much better, although, you know, we would love some tweaks, like, you know, if there was a statewide sort of database, you know, the MSD was, you know, responsible for, things of that nature, because some of the issues arose when it didn't matter if, like, let's say I go to Montgomery County Public Schools and we already did this background here, Montgomery County would still have to do the exact same thing, even if Anne Arundel just did it last year. So some of those things were addressed, but there isn't like a statewide database, but it is easier for school systems to share information now.
Fantastic. So still 21 days, but at least just 10 years worth of stuff?
It's 10 years. I forget the time frame. We have to show that within the certain time frame, we've made at least, I think, like 3 attempts to contact, because what may happen is the former employer may not respond.
Right.
And so then there's not a penalty on the school system. There's a penalty on the applicant if there's like, you know, if there are lies that are, if
Right.
it is determined that this individual lied on the application. But then the school system has to make a determination,
Right.
like, do we want to hire this person? If, you know, do we have sufficient information? So it does leave the discretion to the school system, but yeah, we still have to
Okay.
get in touch with folks.
Well, at least it's better.
It is better.
My second question, kind of loaded, so apologies for this, and I don't know that we have time in the day to go through it, if there are any, but we have the skinny on the highlights of things that passed. Are there any bills in particular that are, at least in your worldview, really unfortunate for the school system that did not pass? Is that a weird question?
That did not pass, that we would have loved to pass. I mean, we would have loved, Alex and I were communicating about this bill. There was the bill that would have decreased or increased the amount of time we can keep a school bus for the purposes before we have to replace it, which is currently 12 years, but it would have increased it to 15 years. So that would have been helpful to have that. We supported the legislation. It would have put us in line with, I think it was like 15 other counties do it. So not detrimental, but certainly would have saved us some money and allowed us to keep buses a little bit running
So other
longer.
counties are able to keep buses longer than this county?
Yeah, there are. I looked it up. I put it in my testimony. There were like in the teens, like 13 or 14 other counties, it's 15 years, and then others vary. We're 12.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know why that is. That's very odd to me.
Anne
Something
Arundel
like that would be
delegation,
similar.
that's bananas.
So the delegation did support this legislation, and they introduced it. So I don't know the history behind why we were 12 years. I mean, perhaps everyone was 12, but other counties increased. I just don't know that. But so that would have been helpful. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was detrimental. but I can certainly circle back if I find.
Sure. And then I'll just end with, I see that there was some bills that passed, not to be too specific intentionally, I hope that's the first step for some of these things. I'll just leave it there. Thank you so much for your, everything you do, really. She is the expert, and this is incredible work that you do. Thank you.
Yes, I see no more lights. Thank you very much, Ms.
You're
Ortiz, for
welcome.
another excellent session, and may you have a break soon.
I took my break, so I'm a little rested now.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item 8.02, award of contracts, review items. I see no lights. Before anybody jumps and makes a motion to adjourn, I just want to add one thing, just because it's been noted earlier, and I should have mentioned this in my report, and Mr. Silkworth has some words on this, but it is Teacher Appreciation Week. And we want to make sure that we give a shout out to the extraordinary teachers who work for AACPS and are there for our kids every single day, and without whom none of what we do up here would mean a bloomin' thing. So, have a wonderful Teacher Appreciation Week, everyone. Mr. Silkworth, did you want to add something?
Just a few brief comments. As Dr. Tobin said, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. In my mind, every day should be one to show gratitude and appreciation to our teachers. I'm addressing my comments now to teachers, Anne Arundel County teachers. Please know that this board, appreciates everything you do. Please know your sacrifices do not go unnoticed. Please know that we know you care, and please know that you are making a huge impact. To Anne Arundel County students, I'd like to say, please show your appreciation, and many or most of you do each and every day. A heartfelt handwritten note is always greatly appreciated. Please know that you as a student make a difference in the lives of teachers every single day. Teachers inspire, teachers guide, and they mentor. I personally am thankful for all of the teachers who made a difference for me, and I would specifically like to make a shout out to David and Margaret, my high school physics teacher, my 9th grade physical science teacher, who did exactly that in terms of it being my mentor and inspiring me. And I will tell you, they've been retired for many years, but we are still friends, great friends today, and we see one another. I wouldn't be, and my twin brother would not be who we are if it were not for David and Margaret. So I thank them. Ladies and gentlemen, teachers or students, thank your teachers.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Schulheim.
That was everything that you just said, ditto. For me, it was Mrs. Mercer, and I haven't talked with her for a very long time, but she was my person, Judith Mercer, Webb Schools of California. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also say, may the 4th be with you.
I thought we'd get out of here with it, but yes, so thank you. Thank you to all the teachers, and may you have a great week, rest of the week, and
Thank you, teachers. Motion to adjourn.
We've got to go to a closed session, sorry. Motion to enter closed session. My apologies, I was reading the...
Second.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay. Motion.
Madam President, I move that the board go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter and to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
Second.
Consensus?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.